Hi everyone, here's the Book Chemist once again. Today I'm reviewing 1004 by Ben Lerner, an author that I've heard discussed quite a lot, and especially I've seen discussed in a lot of academic literature, academic scholarship on contemporary American fiction, but that I hadn't read until very recently. When I started reading this book, I kind of hated it, and for the first 10-20 pages I really toyed with the idea of abandoning it, even though it's quite short, because it seemed to me to show all the things I hate the most about contemporary American fiction. And I say that as somebody who, generally speaking, loves the genre quite a lot and used to be a scholar of it. It flaunts a certain type of goofy, wishy-washy metafictionality that is nothing like the hardcore stuff from the 1970s and just seems like an exercise in fairly sterile intellectualism. The novel opens with the narrator telling his agent about the type of novel that he's going to write and supposedly the novel you are about to read. It's a story that uses a very cheap shot, a potentially fatal genetic condition, to make you feel sad about a privileged character living in one of the most opulent cities on earth. Its writing style strives to be at once terse and elaborate. It wouldn't dare abuse paragraph breaks, but it really relies heavily on scientific lexicon and abstruse turns of phrases. At one point, Thanksgiving decorations in an elementary school are described as turkeys whose bodies were formed by tracing multi-fingered appendages. Multi-fingered appendages, come on, what the fuck. There's pictures in it. This really gets me. It's a pet peeve of mine. Do you really need to include pictures? Do you really need to include anything other than cold prose in your book? Everybody else seems to manage okay without. Finally, the plot relies heavily on the reader's familiarity with the types of characters that haunts wine receptions and art openings in New York City, with the special boredom and difficulties of these events. It's the kind of book that it looks like it's been written specifically for people living in either Manhattan or the posh bits of Brooklyn. And it's just an incident if you read it anywhere else in the world. Granta, by the way, seems to be a publisher that publishes a lot of this type of fiction, a lot of the type of narratives that get on my nerves a little bit. That said, as I continued reading it, I realized that 1004 talks in a rather beautiful and rather astute way about certain really ephemeral state of beings that would otherwise be quite difficult to put into words. Early on, the narrator talks very clearly about the peculiar type of relief and disappointment that happens when a natural catastrophe that was supposed to be devastating turns out to be not too devastating after all. It reminded me of, it talks about Hurricane Irene striking New York, but it reminded me of my experience during COVID-19, especially during its first lockdown. More broadly speaking, I would say that there's something really compelling about the extreme self-consciousness of the narrative and its at times exaggerated attempts to try and overcome the ironies of life in order to reach a state of absolute sincerity. And I should say that this insistence on sincerity is probably what I hate the most about contemporary American fiction. This self-consciousness that I'm trying to describe is very tangible and very obvious, for instance, in the section where the narrator talks about his involvement with a food cooperative in his neighborhood, or his residence in an artist retreat in Texas, and his awareness that while he is subscribing to these systems that seemingly try to change the world and try to fight the capitalist system and exist outside the rat race and the game of money, these systems are really the exception that proves the rule and are in no way impactful on the broader machine that is oppressing mankind. This could all sound very obnoxious it could almost sound as if the narrator is saying, I am so self-aware, I am even aware that my political commitment is insufficient. But it's actually quite winning and convincing, even for a reader such as myself, who wasn't really won over from the start. The impression you get is that this is simply a slightly neurotic narrator who is trying to navigate the contradictions of modern life and just trying to look for a way out of these contradictions, while also very aware of his own limitations. The same is very true when it comes to the narrator's reflections about the future. He is torn between believing in a brighter future for young people. Children are very much on his mind for most of the book, and also being convinced that the future is grim and doomed, and it's going to be cataclysmic. He is trying to navigate this difficult situation, and he is trying to use his head rather than lose it, to reference a statement in the book itself. The art reflections in the novel, whenever the narrator goes to a new exhibition, goes to see an art show, are also some of its most beautiful passages. They talk about the shows in a way that is very accessible and very, very interesting, and that really shines a beautiful light on the work that the artists are trying to achieve. I'm very happy, I must say, that I stuck with this, because this turned out to be almost the opposite of what I'd anticipated. Not so much a pretentious book, but a book that is extremely aware of its pretensions and doesn't try to hide them, or, to be honest, doesn't try to do much with it all, other really than maybe showing it. It's, if you are passionate about a certain type of ultra-sincere, supposedly, contemporary American fiction, about David Foster Wallace, Dave Eggers, possibly George Saunders, I think you're going to love this. I think Ben Lerner is right up your alley. And I look forward to hear what you think about him. I've seen his name pop up in a lot of academic articles and research, and I'm wondering if he also enjoys a certain mainstream success, or if he is more of a darling of the academic world. Because he is definitely an intellectual, one of those brainy, witty sort of writers. Thanks as always for watching the review. Looking forward to discussing it in the comment section. Bye everybody.